Hey, man, I've always said this, like, professional sports players really, it's a very interesting path because unless you're like a LeBron who has this long, long, long career, you're done in your 20s or 30s with a lot of life left. I remember when I had Nick Young on my show recently, he said he was depressed for 4 years.
Hell yeah.
So basically what it meant was our first interview, he was still going through depression.
Yeah.
He said he just recently kind of snapped out of it. And you went through the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And, not everyone goes through it. I mean, Sebastian Telfair said he was happy to get out of the NBA, it was whatever, but...
He might be, but these rants, I don't even call them rants. His truth and his outbursts a little bit, those might be part of his depression. He don't know until he gets out of it and be like, damn,
Yeah.
I was probably depressed right here. Right? It's we don't know it until we get out of it. Then we know, like, okay, I was depressed then.
Yeah, no, I could imagine, I don't know, doing interviews for 5 years and finally getting into my groove and then being told, okay, you got to retire now. There's a new, younger guy that's going to take over your job. And now you got to figure out how to do something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
Without a real...
No skill.
With no skills. A whole new path. And not everyone was in your position where you actually had a financial base.
The financial base is meaningless.
Not totally.
It is.
Not totally.
No.
If you were broke,
easier.
when you retired,
It's easier.
I think you'd be more depressed.
It's easier. Because reality. It's not, what I mean is not easier in a sense
Definitely
of
not
mentally it's easier because if you're broke, your brain is already registered that you're gonna be back in whatever, right? When you have a lot of money and nothing to do and no skill, the skill you have, you can never use it again. What do you do with your money? You're not a fucking businessman. You don't know nothing. You want me to tell you what you do? You take your ass down to fucking Vegas. You gamble because you're trying to get excited. Fucking sitting here at house party poker games, fucking doing lines off fucking 21-year-olds assholes and shit like that. That's all you fucking do, right? It's like you're sitting there trying to be busy. And the worst thing you want when you're trying to figure out how to be busy is fucking money. Because all you're gonna do is spend it. How many times are you gonna go to the mall and buy watches and buy cars, right? You go broker faster. That's all that happens.
Yes.
The money, that's what I said, the money's meaningless because you don't use it how you were supposed to use it when you are in the NBA investing. You use it for destruction.
I think that what you went through was a whole lot easier than what Joe Smith went through. Joe Smith was literally in the negative a couple years after the NBA. After going through divorce and, buying homes that he took losses on, and essentially having no money by the end.
By the end, I asked him, did he have a drug habit or a gambling habit when he was done? Probably not. Right. Is from there is trying to figure out.
Did you have a drug habit or a gambling habit?
No.
Okay,
no.
so
I got into gambling a little bit. Not a habit, but I got into it, which I never did when I played.
Well, on the plane you did. Not totally true.
But
that was someone who knows you.
But that was $1,100, right? Right, like here you're trying to sit there and play because it's the competition. So when you're talking about an athlete, the only thing that's competition that mimics that is gambling. Right? That's why it's such a close thing. So when you don't have the sport anymore, all you're left with is the what? The bad habit. Right? So them 4 years is really it takes like now he found his purpose. And I can tell you what probably changed him. Probably the Big 3. The Big 3. Right? I put him on a team. He was a player. And then, last year I had to go to my daughter's games. Because it was like a very important time for her in recruiting, and I wanted to show the support. And then I let him be the coach. And I think him coaching and being involved and doing all that, I think it kind of like, I like this. This is what I like. And once you figure out this is what you can do, it has a purpose now. So now it's coaching the Big 3, podcasting now. I tell everybody, man, athletes, when you're done, podcast, dog.
Yeah.
Because you get to, it's therapy.
I mean, yeah, if I think about how many former athletes I have gotten on my show that then went on to do their own thing, John Sally, Sebastian Telfair, I think you were on my show before you started doing, your own. There's probably more I'm just not thinking about right now. But I've always encouraged them to do their own thing. Nick Young, I had him on my show. Now he's doing his own thing. Like, yeah. And I'm always like, yo, you should do it.
It's more of the therapy, man. You interview each other, interview other people. You get to talk and
you have the
tell your stories.
Already.
Yeah, it's just speaking. You get to tell your stories, and you know what I mean. It's just one of those things. It's fun.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a lot more competition for me. Listen, everyone has a podcast now, and I have to compete for the same guests. If I call an NBA player and Paul George calls him in the same day to both do a podcast, who are they going to go with?
The elite is the elite, though. Right? The cream is always the cream. It don't change.
No, that's true.
Right? You know what I mean? So
yeah, we have a following and we'll always maintain a following to a certain degree. And that's because we've been doing it for so long.
If anybody is trying to build and trying to go anywhere, they need to go through certain streets anyway. And the Vlad TV is a street, goddammit, right? It is. Same thing with Stephen A. Smith and all that. Yeah. It's a street. I don't give a shit if you try to go around. You got to go through the street if you want to go to the next level. They're at the next level. So no matter how many podcasts come and all that, like I tell people all the time, yo, I don't fear none of you, right? Yeah. For me, I'm like, oh, what about the podcast? Oh, I ain't really like that. Nah, yeah, I make this. This is what I can get. This is what you can get. This is like, I want you to jump in. Like, I like the battle, right? I know you guys can't compete with me because we don't have the same mind. I'm gonna do things that you just can't do.
No, right. And I get what you're saying, and I agree with you to a certain degree, but I remember a time, let's say 10 years ago, when I would reach out to people for an interview, and they wouldn't be getting very many interview requests. Mm-hmm. There was only me and a couple other people, so they weren't being pulled in that many directions. I think about now, the people I reach out to, I think about how many other interview requests they have because there's so many other podcasts.
Yeah, I get that part.
That 10 years ago, they would have done a Vlad TV, but now it's like,
yeah, I can go somewhere else.
I could go with someone that maybe I feel a little more comfortable with because there's so many more options. I'm going to go with someone that's in the same field as me, or maybe a rapper who I like. You know what I mean? YG has a podcast.
Yeah.
Like I said, Paul George has a podcast. You have a podcast. Nick Young has a podcast. Ultimately, if there's a certain player that I want to, they're like, well, no, I already know. I played with, Gilbert. I'll just go with him.
Yeah, but see, just like mine, Nick Young is, I understand the same thing that you're saying. How many times can one person do an interview, right? We're pulling from the same sources. So when I created, Gil's Arena, I treated it just like TNT, Charles Barkley now. It's going to be the four of us. We are the guest, right? We're going to be the guest, right? We're going to build our staple for us. We're not relying on a guest. It's our personalities got to carry. And if we do get a guest, it's just a one-off. Once a month, once every 2 months. But for the most part, they're coming to see us.
Right, like Rich Paul's been on the show and everything.
So we don't, and that's like pre-recorded and stuff like that. So, 1% is interviewing, right? From there is just our personalities. And I say it lasts longer because sometimes, guests can hurt your platform. Let's just say you wasn't expecting him to be as good as he was. Now your next guest got to compete with him, right? And then it becomes this, Now you're doing this stepping stone and who you want first and who you want this, and it becomes more fucking chess playing than before. It was like, I can get this guest, this guy's gonna go, and now it's, if I'm going back to traditional, and someone says, all right, give me your top 10 guests you want, I gotta really think about who I want.
Huh.
I can't say, all right, I want The Rock first. Oh, that might be a podcast killer. Who comes after The Rock? You know what I mean? Who comes after the fucking Rock? Kevin Hart? Then who comes after him? Will Smith? Then who comes after him? Right? Now I'm just, you know what I mean? But when I'm sitting with a thing, then eventually it has to tail off.
No, listen, you're in a better position. Like, me and Joe Budden have had our differences, but I applaud the fact that he's one of the few podcasts in hip hop that have put together his own group of people, and the show relies on him, really him, and the people he chooses to sit in that chair. And that's a revolving chair. At one point, Rory Mal were in those chairs, and now it's Queen's Flip and, Melissa and, whoever else. For me, I've always been behind the camera, but I learned early on that if I'm always relying on a new guest every day, it's not going to work. So that's why I built up a big group of repeat guests, one of which is you.
Me.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You, John Sally, TK Kirkland, Boosie, of course, BG Knockout, 1090 Jake, Whack 100 now is a regular guest. Tony Yayo has been a big success. And it's like, these guys here, I'll pay them to be on. I'm not going to keep asking for favors. I'll pay them to be on, and I'll be able to rotate them all the time. So there's the familiarity with our audience, but it's also me involved in it.
Yeah,
so it's a different approach, but it's similar.
It's a different approach, but it's similar.
It's similar, right? If I had to be like a Drink Champs where every time I had to get someone completely brand new, it'd be a much harder sell. And you could tell by the amount of content I do in Drink Champs, I just do more interviews than they do.
Yeah, it's a, there's once a week?
Probably,
traditional, but
Yeah, I could do 5 interviews in a week.
But as if they can't get a guest at time, it kind of throws off and I had that where, you're sitting there, these guests say and then they falter,
I've had people fall through, Lamar Odom, who I mentioned last time.
Yeah.
3 different occasions, 3 last-minute cancellations.
So
it's catastrophic to the business when that happens.
And that's why you have to, and that's what I understood because I was on that side already doing interviews.
Yeah.
And I can see how hard it is where, 2 weeks we didn't get the drop because we didn't get no interviews. Now we got to do hot takes and it's just me, right? And then I started saying, why don't we just do the hot takes for the most part?
Yeah.
And then we get interviews, and then when we get interviews, just try to get 4 or 5 and bank them and then push those out. And then from there, it's now I got to create a bulletproof plan, and this was the bulletproof plan.